Okay, today I'm going to compare two different style hems we can do in our home sewing machine when it comes to hemming our jeans. On jeans, you will find on the inside leg seam, traditionally, there's a flat felt seam. And what that means is the seam is kind of interlocked like this, and so we end up with 3 layers of fabric for each fold. So one of the problems is when you do the fold on the flat felt seam, you end up with essentially 9 layers of thick denim, and the home machines often struggle with this big hump here that we have to sew over on the inside seam, inside leg seam. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Singer Quantum Stylus 9960, and it struggles with this style seam sometimes. So I'll sew the first seam where we've taken and we've used a technique of cutting out the first fold. So this is only on the inside leg seam. On the outside seam it's serged, so generally the machines don't have any trouble with the serged turn. So I'm not going to sew over that. I'm just going to sew over the inside leg seam of each one of these, one with a cutout, other without, and we'll listen to the machine and see how it performs between the two. One of the things you want to do is do your double fold and then unfold it. You want to cut to the first fold line right there on the flat felt seam. So just cut that little piece out and then refold your pants. And you want to put Fray Check on the edge here. So you can pick it up at any fabric store. I've actually seen it in Walmart. Also, the stores that still have the sewing sections. Hobby Lobby, any of those kind of places will have it. But get this, apply a couple of drops on there. I kind of rub it in to get it into the fabric nicely. Let it dry, and then you can go on about doing your hem. So let's go ahead and do our double fold here, and I'll sew this seam up, and let's see how it does. Okay, we've got the Singer Quantum Stylus 9960 set up. I'm using a stitch length of 3.5. I've got my needle moved all the way over to the left, and I'm using my blind hem foot as my guide to give me a good straight stitch. I'm only going to stitch over the flat felt seam where we've done the cutoff on this. So I want you to listen to the machine as it goes over it, and we'll compare it to the one that's been uncut to see what the difference is. And you can see it didn't struggle at all. Nice clean seam, no skip stitches. Everything looks good. Okay, let's move over to the next one. This is the one that has not been trimmed. We're going to compare how the machine performs when we don't trim the seam and see if it makes a big difference. This seam is much more narrow, so my stitch is going to come closer to the edge, which is the way I normally do it. So, alright, here we go. Okay, it's at the seam, and the foot's already catching on the side seam on this one, and it didn't on the previous one. So let me see if I can get it up and over the seam. There we go. Okay, let me cut the thread. You heard the difference. Struggled a little bit more, but it still made it over it. And looking at the seam did shorten on this one when it hit that side seam. It was struggling a little bit in feeding, it looks like. So let's compare the two. This is the one that's cut. You can see it's a little bit wider, and we've got a nice even seam. And then on the uncut one, we've got shorter seams. It actually pushed the seam over a bit. I should have paid a little bit more attention to keeping those straight, which I normally do, but anyway, that can show you the difference in cutting that off. It's up to you. If your machine struggles, you can cut it off. If not, and you can get over this cleanly. It's a little bit cleaner hem because you haven't done the cut, but either way will work fine. Just be sure and use the Fray Check on the edge of it, and I think you'll do good. Hope this demonstration's helped you out. Please let me know if you have any questions.